Welcome back to Bells in the Band. This is Karen Van Wert, and we're moving on to part 4, using lead sheet chords as a treatment for your bell tree. When working with lead sheets, let's keep it simple and focus on the basic triad: the root, the third, and the fifth. This will minimize the amount of music theory that we need to know and give you plenty of flexibility to make beautiful music with your bell tree. So very simply, what is a triad? A triad consists of the root, which is the lowest note in the chord. The third and the fifth are the third and fifth note in the chord, respectively. I've created a triad chord chart for those of us who need a little help with identifying what the third and the fifth is. So you can check that out. There's a link in the document related to these videos. So how do we use our chords? First of all, we can just use that first note in the chord. We start with the root or the bass note of the chord. A lead sheet will have a capital letter for each chord. This letter indicates the root or the bass of the chord. You can play that note. For example, just play the bass on the beat 1 of each measure or on the beat of whenever there's a chord change. On the right side of this slide are other notations used for major chords, but the most common is just a capital letter of the chord, as the examples that you see here: F, F sharp, and B flat. So the video example that I have for you is Cornerstone. The intro of this duplicates the piano part, so you'll hear that, and then on the verse I play the bass or the root of each chord.
My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but only trust in Jesus' name.
Pretty easy, right? You need to be aware of one exception when you see two letters separated by a slash, as you see on the right side of this slide, the C/E. This indicates an inversion. We don't have to get into the details of what that means, but you do need to know that it changes the bass note of the chord to the note following the slash. So super simple, the thing you need to do is to play the note to the right of the slash. So in this case, this example, where it's a C chord, but we're going to play the E as our root or our bass note. And I use the term bass because that term covers both the root or another note as the lowest note in the chord. Moving on to the third of the chord. You can add the third note in the chord to the root. Again, you can use that chart that I created to find out what the third is for your chord. And you can either play those together or play it as a pattern. In the example that I'm going to share with you all who are thirsty, there's a section there where I'm doing the root and the third, and I'm playing them together. Now in this video, I'm using just 2 mallets, and I realized after rehearsal that I really needed to have 2 mallets in each hand. So if you want to learn that skill, this is a great opportunity to do it. It'll make it feel a lot smoother and easier than changing sides of the bell tree. You can also play them as a pattern. For example, you could do the root as a dotted half note, and then the third play 2 eighth notes on beat 4 if you're in 4/4 time. There are a few things that you need to be aware of, the notation impact to that third. So if you're playing the root and a third, if you see SUS following your chord letter, then you need to raise the third by a half a step. If you see minor, min, mi, minus sign, diminish, dim, or a zero, it indicates a minor chord, and you need to lower the third by a half step. Not very often, but sometimes a minor chord might also be indicated by a lowercase letter. So instead of a capital C, you might see a lowercase c, and that also means that the third needs to be lowered by a half step. Just like we play the root and a third, we can also do a root and the fifth. So adding the fifth to the root. We can play these together. This is known as a power chord. The power chord may be notated as the chord letter followed by a 5. As you see in this example, C5 means that we play the C, the root, and the fifth of that chord together. So we're leaving out the third. You can also play them as a pattern, similar to what we talked about in the thirds. Another option is to add your third to the first and fifth. So you have all three notes of your triad, the root, the third, and the fifth, and play it as a pattern. And the example that I'm going to share with you here is How Deep a Father's Love for Us, that includes all three of notes of the triad.
Behold the man upon the cross, my sin upon his shoulders. Ashamed I hear my mocking voice call out among the scoffers. It was my sin that held him there until it was accomplished.
Just as we saw in the thirds, we have some notation impact for the fifth. So if you're playing the fifth and you see aug, a plus sign, or a sharp 5, that means that we need to raise the fifth a half a step. If you see diminished, which shows up as dimin, dim, a 0, or a flat 5, then you need to lower the fifth by half a step. This is not common in worship music, but if you see them, I want you to be aware of what you need to do for that fifth note. That covers our triad, and with those three pieces, the root, the third, and the fifth, you can do a lot of different combinations to add and embellish your praise music. There are other chord notations. We're not going to worry about those right now because we're going to focus on those thirds, but if you see them, there are things like adding notes above the bass triad, the 7th, the 6th, the 9th, the 11th. You may see those. You don't have to worry about those, just play your triad chord. There are a number of free online music theory learning opportunities to expand your knowledge of chords if you want to delve into this further. So in this video, we've talked about the basic triad using our lead sheet to add the bass or the root, the third, and the fifth of the chord. And again, there's a chart available for you to see what those three notes are for each of the chords that are available.